I want to thank the listeners and viewers of InfoWars. And on this Thanksgiving and this Black Friday that's coming up, we're going to extend free shipping store-wide to people specifically that have the promo code FREE.
And we are back live as negotiations continue over Donald Trump's Secretary of State. They're now saying that it could be Petraeus. Of course, a massive, massive backlash against Mitt Romney. It looked like he could be a shoo-in. Obviously, we know he had that meeting with Trump. But again, Trump's base basically had a fit, revolted against it. A lot of people now saying they're going to jump off the Trump train if he gets Mitt Romney as his Secretary of State. Others are saying that that's an overreaction. We wait and see. We're going to get Alex Jones's comments on that, as well as Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, now announcing, as of about 30 minutes ago, that she will file for the recount in Wisconsin. It's a 5 p.m. deadline. They're going to file for that recount. It's already funded, and they're well on the way to funding recounts in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Not so interested in having recounts in any of the blue states that Hillary won in even tighter numbers. A lot of concern over this, but also a lot of Trump people saying that it's nothing to worry about. Alex Jones. Do we have Alex?
Yes, Paul, I'm here.
Alex, are you concerned about the recount? Because I've seen a lot of Trump supporters are saying this is just theater, it's not going to have any impact. If they were so concerned about vote fraud before the election, why shouldn't we be concerned about fraud in a recount?
Well, that's why I join you today, Paul. Several huge issues to go over. Bev Harris, who, again, is a big Democrat, a big liberal, who exposed the fraud against Al Gore in 2000. I covered it. Clearly the fraud was against Gore. I hate Gore. But I went with the facts at the time because that was the facts. She is the most highly respected election fraud expert out there. Most of her team are Democrats. We've had a lot of them on, computer scientists, you name it, who have discovered how the systematic fraud is happening with the fraction carving, the fraction magic. We had her on the week before the election. We had her on the day after. And she said clearly, in a whole bunch of states, but clearly in 5 states that went for Hillary, they had some precincts with 100% or more of the voters turning out. Well, national turnout was 65%. That's impossible. And in some precincts, Hillary was getting 100% of the 100%. And in other cases, she was getting 100% of all the final votes. So they were stuffing at the end what they needed, and the tsunami of Donald Trump was so gargantuan. She'd have crowds of 300 on average. She'd have crowds of 25,000 on average. It was so gargantuan. She stole the nomination from Sanders. So much of her base turned away from her that they did try to steal it. It's why she didn't come out and do a concession that night. It's why she reportedly attacked her staff, according to CNN and others, and had to be restrained. All of this was going on. So they were like deer in the headlights. They'd already printed up Newsweek that she was Madam President. This was already a done deal. So absolutely, Jill Stein knew that there was massive backlash against Hillary by Bernie people, so she courted them and made some good points like, hey, if you don't want nuclear war, if you're not going to vote for me, vote for Trump. But now that she's in there, she knows, now that she's lost, she knows that 100% of this money she's getting is from big Democratic Party donors. Upwards of 7 million. It was 5 million yesterday. 7 million has flooded in to do the recount. They're filing today, as you said, pretty much as we speak. And then the key, we have bigger anomalies, as you just pointed out, taking place in all of these blue states where Hillary in the polls was really going to lose. Then magically, there's all of this classic skewing of the vote, all of it in Bev Harris's words against Trump, all of it going against Trump, all of the anomalies against Trump in at least 5 states that Hillary Clinton clearly stole. So the unfortunate part of this is the media has gone along with the fact that Trump's the winner while playing possum, while Soros has funded all these "we're not accepting him as the president" movements, while they've tried to unseat him in the Electoral College, because this is their second sneak attack, basically, that we witnessed here. First, they tried to steal the situation with the superdelegates. Then they tried to obviously unseat him at the RNC. Then they tried to steal it from him on election night, and now they've done it again. So that's 4 times total in this election of the last year, and twice since election night and now. So all of it's one-sided. All of it is against Trump. The top expert says it's against Trump. She clearly stole 5 states. And then it gets worse. She, on record, had 3 million illegals or non-citizens that voted. That's major studies. Anybody can Google it. They're not denying it. Then at least 4 to 5 million people that were on the death rolls ended up voting. Then they caught people in Colorado, California, Ohio, Florida, Vermont, New York, voting repeatedly, against who? Donald Trump, for Hillary. All the fraud, everybody they capture, everybody they catch, everybody they arrest, everybody who gets caught red-handed was being given lists by the Democratic Party of dead people out of the obituaries that linked up with their list people on the voter rolls, and they got caught. But then it gets worse. We have Project Veritas, not one, not two, but 3 videos. Kramer, the head of the national movement, is number 2 guy. And then the head of New York elections admitting that the Democrats are engaged in massive organized fraud, organizing voter fraud via election fraud. So all of this is there. All of this is crystal clear. And I think it's a real threat. I've told folks the battle has just begun. I've had a bad feeling this whole time. They are going after Trump. And basically the Republican Party now has him encircled, saying, listen, you play ball with us, or we're not going to let you use the supermajority to get your agenda done, which includes, controlling our borders, ending NAFTA, ending GATT, ending TPP, ending the carbon taxes that will really set this country free, cutting taxes on poor people. The list goes on and on. 900 plus seats in state houses. What was it? 16 seats in the Senate, 30-something in the House. This was a gigantic victory, a huge tsunami. And so, as you pointed out, the Soros line is Donald Trump has betrayed us. Donald Trump has betrayed us when he hasn't done any such thing yet, so that we pull our support from him as his base. He'll then be forced to fall into the control of the neocons and the mainline Republicans who will be his only supporters. If we stay behind him and wait and see what he actually does via policy once he gets in, then he'll be able to take control of that trifecta, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, and ram our agenda through. But we cannot sit there and freak out on Trump until that happens. Now, I personally agree with David Knight, who put out a video saying this pick for Secretary of Education has promoted Common Core. She better come out and give a speech saying she's on board with Trump now and is going to follow his policies, just like Pence did when he first got chosen as his VP. I am concerned, obviously, about Mitt Romney because he said that Trump's a con man and a criminal and will try to backstab him. But if Trump decides to do that, that's his issue as long as he delivers. But I'll tell you, Petraeus isn't perfect, but he got burned by the CIA when he became their director for actually trying to clean it up. And I have that from insiders. So Petraeus is better. Look, all these people that know how the government works are from the establishment. And Trump's already brought in a lot of outsiders, like Stephen Bannon and others. But what I care about is delivery. And look, stock market's already up. He's exposing political correctness. He says he's going to go after NAFTA and GATT, and TPP's dead day one, and the carbon taxes. So I'm very, very happy at this point. They're putting out the bids to build the wall. Paul Watson, what do you think?
Well, what I see, Alex, is people like Michael Moore, people like the Soros groups, people like Media Matters, they're all completely in a panic about what Trump is going to do in just his first few days. They see this onslaught of new bills in just the first few days of a Trump presidency. That's why they're still out today. And Michael Moore was on, I think it was MSNBC yesterday.
He said we must not allow him to take office. Exactly. So if our enemies are panicking hysterically to keep him out, what does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? So let me ask you this, Paul. What do you think of the information I have? That obviously he's being advised by his chief of staff, Priebus. He's being advised, obviously, by his son-in-law, who I think is a good guy overall, and others. That the smart move to do is to basically, like old empires would do, old royalty. If you'd had a war, 2 kings, you'd marry your daughter off to the other king you just beat, so he wouldn't be butthurt. You merge the power. But here's the deal. Trump's done that in business, and I understand his smarts. This isn't business. This is cutthroat globalist politics. He lets weasels in the henhouse. They're going to try to assassinate him.
No, I mean, that's the point. He would argue that he's going to try and keep his enemies closer. But you could see, just with the reaction on Twitter, an absolute deluge of opposition. Never Romney was trending. That's when Kellyanne Conway had to come out and basically disavow, to some extent, the fact that Romney was a done deal as Secretary of State. But the major point is, they still think they've got a chance of keeping Trump out of the presidency. This is not a done deal until January. And we saw
totally
it with
agree.
Brexit.
The Electoral College doesn't happen until, December 20th? And then we've got all the way up until the 18th to 19th with his inauguration. And Paul, this is key what you just said. Trump needs to know that just because they've seated him as president-elect, just because the people are behind him, the globalists are absolutely criminal. And ladies and gentlemen, they're at least going to try to cripple him politically and bring out a bunch of evidence that the Russians or the Easter Bunnies or somebody else hacked in these crossover states like Pennsylvania and Ohio and Wisconsin and Michigan. Notice they're going after all the places that had very, very narrow victories. But as you pointed out, Hillary won in the other states where we know she stole it by even smaller margins. Jill Stein is caught 110% red fricking handed, ladies and gentlemen, that she's only doing recounts in states to overturn Trump. This is outrageous. I say the whole thing's a fraud. The whole thing is illegitimate. I say you can't have recounts unless the other states that were in question get recounted as well. This is absolutely ridiculous. They're only recounting states to make up a bunch of evidence to try to then politically unseat Donald Trump. This is incredible.
And now, Alex, people are calling for observers to be at the site of these recounts. And you know for sure that Clinton's people are going to be there. So why not? I think that's a great idea. But I mean, we're here 5 months now after Brexit. Brexit hasn't happened, okay? First they said it was going to be March. Now they're saying that's not even going to happen, where they trigger the initial thing where then it takes 2 years to have Brexit. So don't count your chickens before they've hatched. They tried to send death threats to electors across the country. That didn't work. They tried to have riots on the streets funded by George Soros. That didn't work. They're desperate. They're still out there every day saying we can still stop this. We can still stop this. And now this recount is happening and everybody's laid back and it's like, oh, this is just theater. This is not a big deal. They've already announced in Wisconsin it's going to happen, okay? They're going to have their people there.
Top Democratic donors did not just give $7 million in 2 days to Jill Stein to target only states that Trump narrowly won to play games, folks. They're not playing games. They mean business. Their plan is to then at least show that Trump supposedly stole these states and then have a bunch of Black Lives Matters people and communists activate and start burning stuff down. And I want to explain something. I've never seen communists in Ohio, in Texas, in California, in New York that I've witnessed with my own eyeballs this year come out of the woodwork like roaches when a house is burning down, or rats. These people are marching up and down the streets in Austin with guns saying we're going to kill cops, kill cops. Now, that is an armed group with guns saying kill people, and they are protected by the government. Ladies and gentlemen, if I march down the street with a firearm aimed at the ground without one in the chamber, it is my right to exercise it to prove I have that right. But I'm not out there saying kill cops. And this is not some ass-kicking or ass-kissing, having a Freudian slip, comment to police. The police are good, they're bad, they're just normal people like us. But there are local governments that rule in law. This is Soros and the globalists trying to openly overthrow our country. It is completely transparent. These people know they were about to bring the country down. They almost had us in the guillotine. They almost were going to have their Supreme Court justices. They almost had our guns. They almost had everything. And now they're turning their psyop up on turbocharge. That's why we got to all be behind Donald Trump unless he deviates massively. And then even if that happens, Lord knows what's happening to his family. We have to understand the real globalist threat tried to keep him out. They are our enemies, and we've got to keep our eye on them. Now, down the road, Trump goes sideways, we'll keep him in line. Already he's backing away from Romney. That's a good thing, but that's the system pressuring him, saying, we'll protect you, merge with us. You know, you're the president now. They're threatening to not give him the employees he needs. They're threatening for agencies to basically go on strike. I mean, Trump is the man in the arena. And Paul, I want to go back to what you were just saying. Ladies and gentlemen, they are activating their terror forces. They are activating their burn down the city's forces. They're activating the communists. These people wouldn't be hitting the streets after decades of being prepared behind the scenes if the New World Order wasn't seconds away from false flags, starting wars, you name it. Trump is 54 days from the presidency. We need to be praying for America, praying for the republic. I knew that once the election was over, I couldn't take a break or take a rest because this is a time of quickening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I want to ask the crew this. Do you guys have the video that's on Infowars.com that I asked for earlier? Okay, it's up on Infowars.com. It is one of the most important videos that we have ever had, and I'll tell you right now, I've been thinking and praying about what's happening with Trump. I've been watching. I have seen what he's saying he's going to do, what he's preparing to do. That's all very, very positive. I give him a 97 on that. Who he's been appointing or who he's announcing for confirmation, I give him a 75. But the real test begins once he gets into office. Now, last night, I don't normally talk like this, but it's the way I privately operate sometimes. I'm almost always completely decisive. My gut's never wrong. And my gut tells me Donald Trump is real. Donald Trump is amazing. Donald Trump is a patriot. But my gut was they're going to try to steal it. They did try to steal it. And my gut was it isn't over. They're going to pull something big. Just what Paul just said. They are doing it now. I'm so excited I can hardly talk. And I prayed to God last night. And I said, God, just show me a sign that Trump is 100%. My gut, my spirit's telling me he is. Tell me what I do. Tell me what I say to the patriots then, because if I sit there and say stay by Trump when he's not perfect, they're going to think I've sold out. What do I do? God, please give me the integrity to understand what to do to always be on the right side. And I started thinking Trump is going to expose false flags. Trump is going to expose the criminals behind the government. Trump has Trump cards. Trump has Trump cards. And I'm laying there in bed at midnight, not able to sleep, and I just keep thinking, Trump has Trump cards. I got up this morning. I got ready. I came in here. I've been up since 6 a.m., made breakfast for the kids. I walked in here. We're going to skip this network break so we have more time, folks. And I'm about to get ready to come on 15 minutes before I come on with you. And I turned on Infowars.com, and I hit refresh, and there was the video. There was the video, and I said, what on earth is this? I've never seen this. Watch this viral video of Trump on 9/11. Whoever posted this to Infowars, great job from our crew today. But we need to really do another article on this, give it another headline. This is sensational. This is so key.
Great. Donald, you're probably the best-known builder, particularly of great buildings in the city. There's a great deal of question about whether or not the damage and the ultimate destruction of the buildings was caused by the airplanes, by architectural defect, or possibly by bombs or aftershocks. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it was an architectural defect. You know, the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation, and it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid, and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows, you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think, you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747, or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel.
And I don't want to get metaphysical here, folks, but God's real, providence is real. I just kept thinking Trump is going to expose government-sponsored terror. He's going to expose the Saudis. His Trump card is false flags. He will expose the false flags, but he's got to get into office. Guess what I then saw? Paul, when I watched the video, I turned you down in the background. I was listening to you. It was like 10 Central. And guess what I watched in a 3-minute video, Paul Watson?
Well, it's the video up on InfoWars where Trump is talking about the planes hitting the World Trade Center, and he says basically there had to be bombs in there that were exploded at the same time because those steel beams, you would just not see what you saw on 9/11 with the planes going into the towers. And that's a video that I'd never seen before, and it's amazing to see it now all these years later.
Well, again, it tells you he wasn't on the inside of the New York scam. He wasn't on the inside of the mafia scam was involved, because within 30 minutes of it happening, they had plainclothes, obvious operatives wearing ball caps to cover their eyes, all over TV saying, oh, it fell because of a pancake effect and the fires weakened the steel, and then they'd walk off camera. They had staged interviews, which we've now proven they've done, with guys in baseball caps, clearly CIA or above CIA. The CIA, of course, was based in Building 7, the Solomon's Brother building. And this is another sign that Trump, this is so incredible. He explained, and I've studied the buildings, obviously, had top engineers on, were the strongest in the world because they were the tallest at that time to be built, so they were scared, so they overbuilt them. He basically said that the beams are so close together, in the windows, they're like slits. He said that it is the strongest buildings in the world, and that it is impossible for it to fall from fire, and that a plane wouldn't even be able to go through it without huge explosives in the plane and inside the building, which is what the firefighters said. It's what the engineers said. When he said that in 2001, Donald J. Trump had already built over 200 buildings, including some of them 60 and 70 stories. So he literally is an on-the-ground engineer, not just an economist, building buildings with his dad since he was 3 years old, on the work sites, living on the work sites. That's why he's such a regular guy. That's why he's got street smarts as well, all the fights and stuff he got in at the work sites as a kid. And his dad was a good dad and let him get beat up and stuff. That's all the inside baseball on Trump. And my dad let me get beat up. People think that's abusive. It's actually a good thing to make your kid tough. But the whole ball of wax, folks, is Donald J. Trump here, ladies and gentlemen, literally laying out basically it's an inside job. Day one showing he wasn't part of it. And so much of New York was, and I've prayed about that. We've brought up the fact of what's happened in New York, but so many of the bigwigs were in on it, the stand down, the Saudis. That's why he went after the Saudis. It's why he threatened Jeb Bush with 9/11 Truth. We got messages. I don't want to say too much this because the media will go crazy with it, but let's just say this. We were obviously exposing 9/11. Trump was exposing at the same time. It really shook up the power structure. And let me tell you, Hillary was forced to stand down that night because of WikiLeaks. More pedophile stuff was going to come out. They were going to contest the election. She was stealing. They knew that it was a tsunami, so she was deer in the headlights and basically got sedated by her own people that understood it would bring down the whole Democratic Party. Even the pedophilia came out. So the Democrats all know that this happened. They thought they'd coup America. They didn't. We won. We defeated their fraud. People inside who understand their whole system's going to come down, and we mean business, backed off because they know we're not backing off. But now the criminals that weren't at the vortex of this have tried to reconstitute their operations and try to steal it again. And I will give you this warning, you bastards. You're not going to bankrupt our country. You're not going to leave the borders wide open. You're not going to sell us out to the Saudis and the Communist Chinese. We're not going to have the Communist Chinese telling us what to do. But notice the Communist Chinese were in the Wall Street Journal last week and the New York Times telling us you will shut down the alt media. You will control your people. I mean, folks, we are ganged up on by the Communist Chinese, the Saudi Arabians, the bunch of EU globalists, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and a bunch of scum. And Trump, by the way, is announcing for his Treasury Secretary and other folks a whole bunch of hardcore anti-NAFTA GATT independent billionaire Americans that nobody's ever heard of. They started announcing these guys. These are guys I happen to know from high-level folks behind the scenes that have been involved trying to finance the liberty movement. Boy, I wish they'd have sent me some money over the years. Scrape at the tip of the spear and get nothing. But the point is, and in fact, that was some positive stuff I wanted to get into. I'm brainstorming here. Some of these new appointments he's announcing in banking and things are hardcore anti-globalists. Can you hear me, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good. I'm sorry, but my phone was cutting out. But look, I know I'm ranting here, folks. It's because this is history happening. I'm going to play this clip here in a moment. But first, I've got to say this. We can't fund this operation without your help. And today, all the Black Friday specials on colloidal silver, 50% off. Super Male Vitality, 30% off. The hair, nail, and skin formula that's already super discounted, 30% off. Everything is 30 to 50% off today. 50% off of colloidal silver. We very rarely do that, only maybe once a year. That's going for Black Friday. A great way to stock up on that. Also, we have free shipping store-wide only today with promo code FREE, because we can't give it to everybody. But the people listening to the show today and the folks watching this later on YouTube and Facebook, you get free shipping on top of that. We can't do it for everybody because it's such a lost leader that we'll lose money if everybody does it. But just for the hardcore listeners listening on the day after Thanksgiving, free, F-R-E-E, at checkout. We need your prayers. We need your support. We need everybody to also just spread the word about our videos, our articles, because we're climbing to 126 on Quantcast, bigger than BBC, bigger than the New York Times. That's not rhetoric, folks. That's happening. But we're now in the target of Obama and the globalists saying next move is they're going to, quote, shut down the fake media. That means us. That means you. So we've got to grow even faster. These criminals aren't going to let us take this country back without a fight. So listen to me. When we talk about grand strategies, when we talk about hardcore stuff going on, when we talk about inside baseball taking place, you have no idea the effect you're having, how powerful you are, folks, how powerful your prayers are. You have no idea the stuff I know that I'm not at liberty to tell you here on air. But understand, Donald Trump on the day of 9/11 was on local at NBC 9. People are going to the archives now, digging up stuff on Trump and the stuff they try to use against him. I'm told this originally surfaced with them a few weeks ago, but didn't get any traction, trying to say, oh, look, he's a 9/11 truther. Now it blows up in their face again. Trump understands how the whole thing works. So let's go ahead and play this clip from 15 years ago on 9/11 as the towers had collapsed on New York's Channel 9. Here it is.
Great. Donald, you're probably the best-known builder, particularly of great buildings in the city. There's a great deal of question about whether or not the damage and the ultimate destruction of the buildings was caused by the airplanes, by architectural defect, or possibly by bombs or aftershocks. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it was an architectural defect. You know, the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because it's your foundation, and it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel.
We're gonna go to break, come back and play it again, and I'm gonna punch out here and let Paul Watson to take over. But Paul, I'm not kidding. I was literally praying for God to show me whether Trump was totally for real. And can you believe that false flag came to mind, that he would expose it? And here it is.
We are back. It's the second hour of the Alex Jones Show, and we were talking about this amazing clip up on Infowars.com. Donald Trump talking about 9/11. Never before seen this. I've not seen this clip before, and I've seen most of them. We've got Alex Jones with us to talk about it, but let's go back to this clip. Donald Trump talking about the events of 9/11. Here it is.
And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think, you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. and in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that there was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, there were very big planes. They were going very rapidly, because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going...
All right, and again, that's just the second half of the clip. I'm sure Paul will play it in a longer segment later, end to end. It's on Infowars.com. This is so huge. I'm coming into the office, and I'm going to shoot an emergency report in HD with this. This is just unbelievably powerful. And again, I don't get into the metaphysical. I'm a Christian. I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. But my whole life, I would have dreams that came true exactly like things later happened. I kept that private until a few years ago, but a lot of folks have those dreams. It's been proven. It's been documented. Everybody knows the sixth sense is dead on, women's intuition, you name it. And I've really been constantly thinking about the different angles, and then also have a lot of sources, and looking at what Trump's doing. And it was so clear to me last night, stand behind Trump, supporting, criticize things he does you don't like, but don't make it a hysteria and an anti-Trump train, because we know Soros and Michael Moore and others are fomenting this and trying to steal the election from him when they openly stole 5 states. And he still won. So it's very clear. Get behind Trump more than ever before, but also, try to do everything you can to pressure, because he's got pressure on him from the other side, for him to appoint nothing but patriots. But don't expect that to happen, because he's got to have navigators inside. But I'm telling you, I never talk like this on air. But last night, I laid there in bed for 2 hours. Got in bed about 10. Thought I could go to bed because I'm picking out with family, over on turkey and dressing. And I just kept thinking and getting up and walking around and drinking ice water. And I just thought, no, Trump exposed 9/11. Trump threatened the Bushes with the information and their Saudi connection. Trump knows. And then I thought, well, Trump needs to go public then. And I just thought he will. Because, when you have these deep thoughts that are from your spirit, they're not exact. They're like generals, like looking through a fog. And then I just kept thinking, the Trump card is false flag. He will expose false flag. He has Trump cards. Trump has Trumps. And then this morning I get up and I'm like sitting here going, well, never got the sign. Never, what do I do? And then boom, there's Trump right in front of me, updated. As I was looking at it, the site updated, and there was the video that somebody at the office, I want to find out who, posted with our logo and stuff. Paul, I know you don't get too metaphysical on air either, but what do you make of this?
No, it's absolutely amazing. It goes to the heart of the point, which is he was not an insider at any point, and he still isn't. And, the question is with this recount, if they try to steal it, what's going to happen? The media has legitimized protests by butthurt Hillary supporters, riots. What's going to happen if she basically tries to install herself as part of a coup?
I want to thank the listeners and viewers of InfoWars. We've changed the world. Even mainstream media admits that we're bigger than CNN, we're as big as Fox, we're bigger than the BBC, on Quantcast, you name it. I want to thank you all for your support. And on this Thanksgiving and this Black Friday that's coming up, we're going to extend free shipping store-wide to people specifically that have the promo code FREE. Some of the specials are as high as 50% on incredibly high-quality products like Silver Bullet Colloidal Silver. That's 50% off and free shipping. That is a loss leader at InfoWarsStore.com. Trump is My President shirt is about to sell out. It's limited edition. It is for sale at cost, $9.95, shipping included. All you have to do is put in promo code FREE at checkout to get free shipping on top of discounts up to 50% off store-wide at InfoWarsStore.com. You can also call toll-free 888-253-3139. But for myself, the InfoWars family, and everybody else in this fight, I want to salute and thank all of you for your support. Whatever you do, keep spreading the articles, the videos to everybody you know. It is absolutely devastating the globalists, because we're on the march and the frickin' empire is on the run. I want to thank the listeners and viewers of InfoWars. And on this Thanksgiving and this Black Friday that's coming up, we're going to extend free shipping store-wide to people specifically that have the promo code FREE.
And we are back live as negotiations continue over Donald Trump's Secretary of State. They're now saying that it could be Petraeus. Of course, a massive backlash against Mitt Romney. It looked like he could be a shoo-in. Obviously, we know he had that meeting with Trump But again, Trump's base basically had a fit, revolted against it. A lot of people now saying they're going to jump off the Trump train if he gets Mitt Romney as his Secretary of State. Others are saying that that's an overreaction. We wait and see. We're going to get Alex Jones's comments on that, as well as Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, now announcing, as of about 30 minutes ago, that she will file for the recount in Wisconsin. It's a 5 p.m. deadline. They're going to file for that recount. It's already funded, and they're well on the way to funding recounts in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Not so interested in having recounts in any of the blue states that Hillary won in even tighter numbers. A lot of concern over this, but also a lot of Trump people saying that it's nothing to worry about. Alex Jones. Do we have Alex?
Yes, Paul, I'm here.
Alex, are you concerned about the recount? Because I've seen a lot of Trump supporters are saying this is just theater. It's not going to have any impact. If they were so concerned about vote fraud before the election, why shouldn't we be concerned about fraud in a recount?
Well, that's why I join you today, Paul. Several huge issues to go over. Bev Harris, who, again, is a big Democrat, a big liberal, who exposed the fraud against Al Gore in 2000. I covered it. Clearly the fraud was against Gore. I hate Gore, but I went with the facts at the time because that was the facts. She is the most highly respected election fraud expert out there. Most of her team are Democrats. We've had a lot of them on, computer scientists, you name it, who have discovered how the systematic fraud is happening with the fraction carving, the fraction magic. We had her on the week before the election. We had her on the day after. And she said clearly, in a whole bunch of states, but clearly in 5 states that went for Hillary, they had some precincts with 100% or more of the voters turning out. Well, national turnout was 65%. That's impossible. And in some precincts, Hillary was getting 100% of the 100%. And in other cases, she was getting 100% of all the final votes. So they were stuffing at the end what they needed, and the tsunami of Donald Trump was so gargantuan. She'd have crowds of 300 on average. She'd have crowds of 25,000 on average. It was so gargantuan. She stole the nomination from Sanders. So much of her base turned away from her that they did try to steal it. It's why she didn't come out and do a concession that night. It's why she reportedly attacked her staff, according to CNN and others, and had to be restrained. All of this was going on. So they were like deer in the headlights. They'd already printed up Newsweek that she was Madam President. This was already a done deal. So absolutely, Jill Stein knew that there was massive backlash against Hillary by Bernie people, so she courted them and made some good points like, hey, if you don't want nuclear war, if you're not going to vote for me, vote for Trump. But now that she's in there, she knows, now that she's lost, she knows that 100% of this money she's getting is from big Democratic Party donors. Upwards of 7 million. It was 5 million yesterday. 7 million has flooded in to do the recount. They're filing today, as you said, pretty much as we speak. And then the key, we have bigger anomalies, as you just pointed out, taking place in all of these blue states where Hillary in the polls was really going to lose. Then magically, there's all of this classic skewing of the vote, all of it in Bev Harris's words against Trump, all of it going against Trump, all of the anomalies against Trump in at least 5 states that Hillary Clinton clearly stole. So the unfortunate part of this is the media has gone along with the fact that Trump's the winner while playing possum, while Soros has funded all these "we're not accepting him as the president" movements, while they've tried to unseat him in the Electoral College, because this is their second sneak attack, basically, that we've witnessed here. First, they tried to steal the situation with the superdelegates. Then they tried to